Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours with myself, Father Stu Wilson Smith at the St. Thomas More Newman Center, the Catholic Campus Ministry with the Ohio State University here in Columbus, Ohio. Once again, I'm in a different setting. This may be a little bit disorienting. Once again, what happened to the office? Why is the office not good enough? The office is good enough. The office is always good enough. It's a good office. I like it. I like hanging out there. At the same time, it's nice to get some variety, I suppose, because I don't spend the whole day in the office. There's other stuff to do, other stuff going on. Last week I was in my car because I was getting a sandwich. That was happening. There's things on the agenda that need to be attended to. And so that's why we mix it up. No, but there's also other priest stuff type things that need to be attended to, apart from the sandwich, which is more personally oriented. It's not so much about the priesthood, though it is important. So today, it is almost the third week of Lent. I can't believe we're approaching the third Sunday. It's rather shocking to me. I don't know about yourself. I feel like February kind of disappeared off the calendar. Since Ash Wednesday, things have been kind of flying along. And, what can you say? This is where we are. I hope that your Lent is going well, that it is blessed and such, and that it's been good for you. So one follow-up there from our last conversation last week that I will now answer here in the sacristy. The sacristy, you might say, is another kind of office of sorts that priests spend some time in, as well as the altar servers and here Mass coordinators and whatnot. We prepare for Mass. Sacristy, sacra, that word, sacred, so it's like a room that holds sacred things. That's where I am. Little digression, that's where I am. I forgot to say where I was after all that babbling. A follow-up question from last time was, it's one thing to have started some kind of Lenten sacrifice or giving something up or maybe starting to serve in some way, an almsgiving or what have you. But what if you never did any of that to begin with? So in particular, the context of this conversation was someone who had kind of spent some time away from the church and wasn't even sure the parameters of that and is interested in doing it now, but it's like Lent has already started. Is it too late? Okay, I guess that's the question. To that, I say no. I think that should be pretty clear. I hope we can agree on that. You don't just say, give it a go next year, this time. No, if you feel called to, at this point, though we're already, partway through Lent, if you feel called to do something, penitential, fasting, praying, and almsgiving, then do it. My model for this that you might look to is that parable in Matthew 20:1-16. It's about the laborers, and the landowner goes out and he hires them at different points of the day to come work on his vineyard. And the ones who come in the last of the day are paid the same as those who came in at the beginning. So, we want to be sure that we're as equitable, and just kind of say, look, you came a little late to the game here, but let's not be envious because God is generous, because he is very generous. And so if at this moment you decide, all right, I'm going to go for it, then go for it. Oh, good. An interesting question of the day that was inspired by a conversation I was having a little bit earlier with someone was about fire and brimstone. I don't know if you ever heard of that kind of preaching, fire and brimstone. Has that connotation that you get in Genesis and Deuteronomy and elsewhere, like Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed with fire and brimstone. It connotes an eternal punishment, damnation, hell. So when people talk about a fire and brimstone preaching, the question was why, especially in Lent, do we not hear more of this kind of preaching? If we're calling people to repentance and whatnot. And in Advent, too, you really make that argument because that's a season of repentance. Why don't you hear more of that? First thing I'll observe is actually a lot of people do hear a lot of that. Many people grew up with only that. That wasn't my experience. I suppose I had a pretty balanced upbringing in terms of the messages we received. Pretty love-oriented, that kind of good stuff. And so it wasn't so much that. For some people, that's all they've heard. And so it's like Christian life is like 95% being afraid of stuff. And what's God going to do to me if I do X, Y, Z? And that's not really the healthiest approach, I would say, to the spiritual life. Now, is there room for that kind of thing? Yeah, I'm not going to throw it out entirely, right? Sometimes we have to challenge ourselves. Hopefully the preacher, like myself, is preaching to oneself also, and being aware that, when you're calling people to repentance, that the ways that you need to change and really it's changed, but it's complex. It's really becoming more yourself and who you are in the eyes of God. So I mean, there's still a place for that. We also, this is another thing, we have a lot of injustice in the world. We have a lot of crazy things going on, including in this country. And prophetic preaching is to say, like, when you're calling out injustice and you're calling for action and calling for self-examination, that by its nature can have a fire and brimstone sort of quality to it. Because we do have to say, wait, let's look at like Matthew 25, and how are we doing with feeding the hungry and clothing the naked and visiting the imprisoned, and metaphorically and literally, and so those things have to be called out, because all those have a personal level when it comes to sin in terms of our engagement with those things. So, we can't just say that, there's no room for like challenging preaching. I won't say that. There is something to that saying of the preacher needing to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, something like that. You may have heard that. I think that's how the phrase goes. So I won't say that. But why don't you hear it as much these days? Well, I think I did it a little bit in Advent. I didn't receive any complaints. In fact, somebody even said, boy, that was nice that you gave me a sense of urgency about prioritizing God in my life. So I thought that was good. But I just think that maybe a lot of homilists, a lot of preachers maybe are trying to convey a deeper interior sense of conversion, so that we're not just doing Christian stuff because we're afraid of the consequences if we don't, but rather we're on an actual like inner pilgrimage of trying to follow Jesus, to grow closer to him and then closer to the ways that he lived his life, because he's trying to model holiness for us. Our destiny is to be with God for all eternity. And so when we live like Jesus, we learn how to be like God in that way, to be self-giving, to be endlessly generous in that sense, to care for the least in our midst, to be compassionate and merciful, and all of these things. And so, so fire and brimstone in that sense, it may not actually get the job done. It may not actually inspire you to interior conversion. You may start doing some of the right things out of fear, but a mature faith, I think we're looking for more than that. So we don't want to just be Catholic out of fear. We want to do it by way of following Jesus Christ. If you're a disciple, if you're trying to follow Jesus, that's a whole other thing. That involves a life of virtue. That involves all this positive sense stuff of like of a way that you need to kind of transform the way that you live based on what's going on in here, your relationship with him and him drawing him deeper and closer to who he is. And ultimately, the church, our faith, this is not primarily an instrument of condemnation or of, just banging people over the head with this thing. Jesus says, I came that you may have joy and have it in abundance. So joy, fulfillment, these things that come from knowing and loving and serving God. And that really is the path that leads you into everlasting life. So there's my homily for today. That wasn't at all, I wasn't intending to getting into a preaching moment, but I guess that's what happened. And I guess that's what that conversation sort of inspires, It's just, it's an interesting one. So, fire and brimstone. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. If you would like to disagree with me, you're welcome to do that. You can do so in the comment section. Nothing like a good internet comment section. I've never seen that go poorly, so that should be fine. No, I trust we can all be kind and charitable. So that's it for now. I hope this has been fun, again, in a new setting. We've got some exciting things coming up this month to look out for, including later this month, we're going to have a couple of special guests from Catholic Relief Services here on campus. They're going to talk to us about some things that they're doing. And I'm also on the lookout for some other sort of special little guest spots. That should be a lot of fun. So if you have any suggestions, once again, let me know. Any questions? Let me know. And until then, God bless you. I got to go bless something. So it's quite mysterious. This person said, I need you to bless something. I mean, I think it's a bicycle or something, and didn't specify exactly what, but that's the adventure of priesthood. So anyway, God bless you all. Peace.